Throughout the Pokémon game series and across all of its generations, one essential component is Pokémon forming a relationship with their trainer based on trust and mutual understanding, which is to say, friendship. Multiple games' narratives have explored the source of this symbiosis and whether it's the Pokemon's choice or forced upon them somehow. All things considered, I think the former is much more likely, and I'll explain why in this video. When a trainer encounters a wild Pokémon, a battle will ensue in which the wild Pokémon attacks either the trainer's Pokémon or the trainer themselves. The wild Pokémon is understandably acting in self-defense to protect itself and what it regards as its territory. At the same time, Pokémon seem to independently desire growing stronger, which they accomplish through battle and other means of training themselves. Several species Pokédex entries discuss them sparring with other wild Pokémon of their own species or another for the purpose of becoming more experienced at it. Once a Pokémon is captured into a Pokéball by a trainer, the Pokémon will have a different level of base friendship depending on the species. This variance may come from how trusting a species tends to be of outsiders based on how it lives in the wild, how acclimated it is to humans, and whether it has natural predators. It's been theorized in-universe and by fans that Pokeballs have something to do with Pokemon being obedient to their trainers. However, if a Pokemon regards a trainer as not being experienced enough to train it, it won't listen to commands. How does a Pokémon know how experienced its trainer is? Most games measure this based on how many gym badges the trainer has, but I'd say the Pokémon themselves think of it a bit differently. Even while inside a Pokéball, Pokémon are likely aware of the other Pokémon in a trainer's party. If those other Pokémon are all of a lower level, it would recognize that the trainer hasn't worked with Pokémon of its level, and it has no way of knowing that the trainer is capable of doing so. If a trainer has another similar or higher level disobedient Pokémon in the party, the Pokémon may be able to tell that the other Pokémon in question is also disobedient. If a Pokémon regards its trainer as being capable of properly training it, why does it allow them to do so? Like I said, Pokémon naturally want to battle in order to grow stronger and voluntarily do so with each other, even in the wild. A trainer's Pokémon can likely recognize that with a trainer, it's able to do so in a more controlled environment and finds that preferable. It's sort of like how cats domesticated themselves in real life. Cats can survive in the wild as strays, but if a human takes good care of them, they find living with a human more desirable and can then form an emotional bond with their human as they spend time together. Speaking of which, let's examine the mechanics of friendship in the games. Friendship can increase simply by a Pokémon staying in a trainer's party as they travel together. Leveling up increases friendship since it's a Pokémon achieving its goal of growing stronger with the help of its trainer. On the other hand, fainting decreases friendship since it prevents a Pokémon from gaining any battle experience and is the result of its trainer not knowing or doing what would be best for the Pokémon in that particular battle. Feeding a Pokémon certain berries or other foods increases friendship, while giving it bitter herbs decreases it. A Pokémon probably expects its trainer to give it food that it likes the taste of and becomes a bit resentful if the trainer makes it eat something it doesn't like. Even if a Pokémon's favorite flavor is bitter, its friendship still goes down if it's given bitter herbs. This is likely because medicine in general just kinda tastes bad no matter what it's flavored like. In Generation 6, Pokémon games introduced the mechanic of affection in addition to friendship, which could be increased by a trainer spending one-on-one time with a Pokémon. In Generation 8, the mechanics of friendship and affection were combined and could also also be raised by a trainer spending time with their team as a group. This kind of thing further demonstrates to a Pokémon that its trainer cares about it as an individual and has its best interests in mind, wanting it to not only grow strong in battle, but also have fun outside of battle. Then we have all the ways that raised friendship manifests. For certain Pokémon, high enough friendship allows them to evolve. It's unknown if the evolution happens automatically, or if the Pokémon chooses to let it happen at that moment to show the trainer how much it trusts them. Pokémon that evolve by friendship can appear in the wild, and as shown in the Pokémon anime, this can happen through a Pokémon bonding with another Pokémon, even of a different species. Certain Pokémon evolve when a trainer trades them to another trainer. I think this happens as a combination of a trainer's trust with their Pokémon and with the other trainer. The trainer trusts their Pokémon to be its best self with its new trainer, just as it did for them, and the traded Pokémon knows that if its trainer trusts this other person, it can too. This could also explain why traded Pokémon gain experience at an increased rate, because its relationship with its new trainer is now the culmination of multiple relationships. Pokémon that evolve through trading can also appear in the wild, which could come from Pokémon going from one wild group of its species to another. The phenomenon which inspired me to make this video is Rogue Mega Evolution, as it appears in Pokémon Legends ZA. Normally, Mega Evolution is able to occur through a Pokémon's bond with its trainer. If Mega Evolution occurs without a trainer involved, the experience is extremely painful and frightening for the affected Pokémon. This heavily implies that the reason Mega Evolution is otherwise painless or significantly less painful is the factor that makes the difference, the special bond that forms between a trainer and Pokémon. When a Pokémon undergoes a controlled Mega Evolution, it understands what's happening and why its trainer wants it to do so. Pokémon are intelligent enough to know which move their trainer is asking them to use, and the fact that they still do so while Mega Evolved shows that they're in a clear state of mind and not in pain. During the events of Legends ZA, the first rogue Mega Evolved Pokémon to be freed from its condition, a wild Absol, chooses to stay with the player character. The Absol recognizes that the player was the one who helped it and trusts that they will take good care of it, wanting to return the favor by battling alongside them. Other games have similar instances of Pokémon choosing to go with a trainer. In Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the player character chooses their starter Pokémon, which then chooses them by voluntarily approaching them. In Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, the partner Pikachu or Eevee sees the player character approach them in the wild and decides to become that character's Pokémon, deliberately instigating a wild encounter so the player can catch them. The ride Pokémon of Scarlet and Violet trust the player upon being given a sandwich to restore their strength. There are also situations where a Pokémon understands that a trainer has done something for its benefit, even indirectly, such as a Pokémon being taken for a haircut or massage and knowing that its trainer chose to do so for them, even though the trainer is not the hairstylist or masseuse who performs the action. Altogether, I think everything I've discussed here is proof that in Pokémon games, friendship is more than just a game mechanic. It's powerful enough to completely transform a Pokémon's experience and even the Pokémon itself. Trainer and Pokémon are both intelligent beings, perhaps equally so, and thus their relationship is not one of animal and master, but of two friends, just the same as it would be with two humans making friends with one another. It's all about the many kinds of extraordinary things that can happen when individuals combine their unique skills to create something new which is greater than the sum of its parts, a phenomenon which exists not only in fantasy, but just as abundantly in the real world. What do you think? How and why do you believe Pokémon form bonds with their trainers the way they do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. I've talked about other Pokémon related topics on this channel, so be sure to check those out if you haven't. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.